So, here we're looking at the masterpiece of the company. This is the 65-1000. So, just a bit of background on this plane before I fly it from Atlanta to, where are we going? Newark. Today, this was designed in about the year 2000. I was 13 years old at the time. I had some massive drawings of this plane on paper, not a computer, and one of the drawings was like a cutaway of the inside, and then on the outside layer I had an outside layer of paper on top of that which showed the exterior of the plane. So looking like you see here, you would have this, then open up the paper and you'd have the inside. I was always attracted to this sort of rear-engined plane design with the cruciform tail, and so decided we'd have a really massive plane. This plane is actually what you would call a super wide-body plane. So this is 3 aisles, and then it has 12 abreast seating, so 3, 3, 3, 3. And it carries 640 passengers, although there's 580 on today. It has 4 rear-mounted engines, 1 on each side of the fuselage, that's the outboard engines, and 2 in the rear, inside the rear fuselage. Anyway, so I'm flying it today to Newark. Not New York, Newark, New Jersey. Right, so it's kind of a short flight for a plane this big. Yes, this plane can fly up to 6,000 plus miles. However, I prefer to fly shorter flights. And this plane would not be too bad on a short flight necessarily. It's got 580 people on it, so it does serve these, you know, you can do a high density kind of short flight on it. We'll get our flight plan in here. No, I'm getting this wrong already. Alright, okay, flight plan, yeah. So yeah, this 65-1000 was the thing of my dreams when I was a 13-year-old kid. I used to imagine flying around on it everywhere. I tried to make a flight dynamic for this on Microsoft Flight Simulator years ago, but I had no idea how to do it on there. I had no idea how to actually make a visual model on there. Which, unlike Xplane, has no relation to the actual flying of the plane. On Xplane you can put in a visual model like in PlaneMaker, you know, and you get the flight dynamics you get. Right, so this plane truly is really massive. It's not quite as big as an A380, and obviously it doesn't have a double deck. I think it looks a lot better than an A380, I'm sure most people would probably agree. It's much more sleek and aerodynamic looking, and it is a very fast plane. So our climb speed will be 350 knots airspeed. I've already loaded the plane up already. I'm not going to record all that, I've decided, because it's kind of boring. I mean, I've loaded all the fuel. I know what the weight is. The weight's going to be 740,000 pounds-ish. Get push back now, actually.
Sending push card now.
And these figures yields an altitude of 35,000 feet and cruising at Mach 0.90, so that's how fast this plane is. That's the normal cruising speed of this plane, 0.90, so it's the world's fastest subsonic airliner.
Here we go.
It's good fun to fly this plane. It's quite stable, and not quite as good handling though, well, according to what I've heard, as the 747 or something like that. And as for the Airbus, well, Airbus 380s have all fly-by-wire, so probably feel very artificial to fly. This plane has none of that, except it is a simulated plane, but apart from that it has no artificial stability or fly-by-wire or flight protections. What you do on the controls is what you get, so if you fly it badly, it'll fly badly, and so on. So yeah, basically when I was like a teenager, this plane was my wet dream. This was, you know, excuse the language, you know, but this was what I always used to think about. And now we have one that can be flown, albeit on a simulator. It would cost millions of pounds to make in real life. Alright, we'll start the engines here. This plane would definitely get a lot of attention if it was made in real life. It would be just, you know, a remarkable sight. As is going to be seen in a moment, it's very difficult to taxi this plane on the ground. It's got such a long wheelbase with the wings being quite far back as well that the taxiing is the hardest part of the whole flight. Believe it or not. Turning this plane around here is going to be difficult. But we'll do our best. The plane has a spike on the nose, and that's, I suppose, I mean, that makes it a bit longer, so it's including that and the fact that the tail is quite swept back. I think the overall length is around 280 feet. We've got our wing views, of course. Right, we're just waiting for number 4 engine to come up. And turn the auxiliary power off. Gonna be flaps 10. Set pitch trim. Plane has roll spoilers. It's kind of a tight space here. It looks like I'm going to have to turn to the right to get out of here. And this plane does not turn easily. I mean, it really doesn't. So we have to do it really slowly and carefully. Anyway, an interesting fact about this plane as well is when I first drew this plane as, like, well, I say a kid, like a teenager. Just having to concentrate on this turn. This is really tight. Anyway. When I first drew this plane, about maybe 14 years old, it had a, what you call a foreplane, like a small wing, so to speak, on the near the nose. Because I believed, based on the very kind of tail-heavy design, and the relatively small tailplane, given the fact that it's quite a big, heavy plane, and has a cruciform tail. I believed it would probably need one. Just for longitudinal stability. However, in the end, when I made it on Xplane, there were issues with longitudinal stability and control range with the tailplane to begin with. What on earth are these stupid vehicles doing? Get out of the way, moron. So yeah, in the end, I was able to tweak the tailplane and the longitudinal stability enough that we did not have to have a foreplane. Yeah, taxiing is the most boring part of this flight. You have to really go very slow on this, otherwise you won't be able to control it and it will go into the grass. Okay. As can be seen, there is no foreplane on this now. It does not need one. Getting this thing to be controllable on the ground is much more of a difficult problem, in fact. So a couple of the things I had to do to get it be more controllable on the ground, given its massive size and weight. I had to have the nose sit as a kind of a 1.5 degree nose down angle on the ground to put more weight on the nose wheel to make them more effective at steering on the ground. Hence why the nose is kind of pointed down on the ground a bit. And the other thing was it had to have 4 wheels on the nose with landing gear. As can be seen. I don't think the Airbus A380 even has that. I think it looks kind of cool though, having 4 wheels on the front. This plane just looks cool anyway. I mean, I know that from a structural point of view, having the engines on the wings is probably better, but I think this design just looks amazing. Okay, let's get around this turn without dragging it through the grass. And trust me, it really is that difficult. You have to have a lot of concentration to turn this. On the A380, I think they've got this sort of camera on the tail that the pilots can use to taxi around corners, but that plane's not even got the wheelbase that this does. This plane kind of looks like a really big overgrown 727 or VC-10 actually, I think. Okay, just double check our speed. So I worked these out from my spreadsheet. 147 and then our initial climb speed is 175 till acceleration height. Takeoff thrust set. We're not using full power today because the plane is not that heavy. One 100. Rotate. Can't actually see the head-up display very easily, so I'm just going to look at the main panel for a minute. It's very windy. Definitely not what you want. The wind is going to give us a hard time, right? Climb power. Man, I mean, people think England's windy. I live in the UK and we don't have anything like the kind of wind that these fuckers do. Like, sorry, excuse me, these people here in the southeast states here. I mean, I think the strongest wind we've had in the UK in the last week has been about 5 miles an hour. Not to say that we don't get wind, but certainly not like this. Very big long turn here, right? We're finally heading in the proper direction. Okay, we'll get the flaps in a moment. 250 knots. Flaps in. We'll accelerate to 350 knots. This plane has a very high minimum drag speed even when it's light because it's such a big wing sweep angle, a high speed wing design. So it likes to climb at well over 350 knots when it's heavy, and probably if it was fully loaded like 400 knots. Again, we have the same problem as previous flights where it's very windy, so I'm going to use the vertical speed hold just to keep the climb smooth until we can put on the airspeed holds and it won't wobble about so much. The nose will keep pitching up and down as it tries to capture the airspeed if you keep getting lots of wind gusts. The wind should die down quite a lot after 10,000 feet. Still quite bumpy. Let's have a look at the outside of this plane. This plane does look amazing in my opinion. We have the air intake over the rear fuselage for engines 2 and 3. Black smoke coming out of the back, which makes it look a little more intimidating. As well as the spike on the nose. We have a very swept back tail, wings, winglets on the end to reduce vortex drag. We have there's actually a fuel tank in the vertical stabilizer you can see on the fairing for the horizontal stabilizer. You've got a fuel tank in the tail there, which is empty at the moment. Looks like the weather's calming down now. So we'll put it in speed hold mode. Since we're going eastwards, I believe there's going to be a tailwind, so we should have a very good ground speed on this, and true airspeed, as you can see, is 416 knots. Rising, the ground speed is already 448, rising. Give the tailwind and the already high speed of this plane, which is remarkably efficient at high speed, then because of the supercritical wing, will have a very high cruising speed there. So due to the combination of good wing sweep angle and the sleek aerodynamics under supercritical wing that delays the transonic drag, this plane also maintains a very high lift-over drag ratio at Mach 0.90, about 16/1. We're done with Atlantis weather, I think. The pressure setting there was pretty much almost standard anyway. Clearly, in real life, there exists no jetliner with a free aisle cabin. I think one of the problems, if there were to be such a thing, it would be the evacuation time. They've got to evacuate a cabin in 90 seconds, as per the rules. And on this plane, I don't know if that would be possible. I think it probably would be. I made sure there's quite a lot of emergency exits. But yeah, this thing is definitely massive. Very wide. Obviously, being from the kind of 2000 era, this plane does have a full glass cockpit, but there are some analog backup instruments along the bottom, like a backup airspeed, backup altimeter, backup artificial horizon. It has both analog looking fuel gauges and also digital fuel, but the digital one doesn't show all the fuel tanks. Only showing 1, 2 and 3. Speed already at a massive 524, 525. It's probably going to be like 550 once we're cruising. I definitely think this plane looks incredible. I reckon this is what all big jets would look like if Apple computers made them. Maybe not as efficient, but definitely good looking. Unlike that monstrosity of a thing that Airbus makes. So yeah, this is basically like the Apple Macintosh of aeroplanes in my opinion. And that speed is really building up. That number is still building up. This plane will climb at 0.89 and then cruise at 0.90. And the rate of climb obviously very good. I could give it just a bit more RPM just to boost the climb rate even more. Obviously the climb rate tends to drop off as we get higher because the area is really thin. Going into 0.89, Mach number. The ground speed might actually drop slightly here because we're holding a Mach number and the airspeed and the ground speed will drop slightly, but we should recover most of that on the cruise. Basically we're already going super fast anyway, 584 knots, so I mean that's in miles an hour. 671.6 miles an hour. Pretty fast. There's that spike on the nose. It's got a light on it, a strobe light, which is a bit silly actually. When you have that on in clouds at night, the pilot goes kind of blind, so it's nice. But I just thought it would be kind of funny. So we've already used about £22,000 of fuel. Well, this does burn a lot of fuel. No question about it. So we're just coming up to our first intersection. I'm not sure where that is or anything, but just approaching that as we reach 35,000 feet. 1,000 to go. Anyway, making this plane was kind of a bit more complicated than making some of the other ones, just because of the unusual configuration. The rear engine and cruciform or T-tail type planes, especially the bigger they are, tend to be just more difficult to make for some reason, like getting the flight dynamics and the handling as well was more of a challenge. Getting that right was more of a challenge. One of the most challenging parts, obviously, like I said, was the taxiing on the ground. Just on the ground was a large problem. We had a problem with the nose wheel not steering effectively, so that's why I had to add extra wheels and put more weight on the nose by dropping the nose, shortening the nose gear length. (35,000 feet, auto. I put the auto thrust on once I'm cruising. I used manual thrust control until that point. Now we're cruising at a very high speed of Mach 0.90. Still a bit bumpy here at 35,000 feet, isn't it? The wing is kind of moving about a bit. Not ideal, but we'll have to do. So there's a 73 knot tailwind, that's giving us a ground speed of 590 knots, or 678 miles an hour. And without the tailwind, we'd have a speed of 520 or so. True airspeed. Which without the tailwind would be the same as the ground speed, so that would still be quite fast. It's very weird in this camera view when the plane wobbles around like that because of the turbulence, and it looks sort of like it's scared or something. It's shivering, it's shaking. What are you shaking for? It's scared. Maybe it's just cold. Yeah. The turbulence effect is not very convincing on Xplane, as we said. It would even be possible to climb to 37,000 feet shortly, but I don't think there's much point. Given the short flights, I don't think fuel is really a concern today, so we'll just stay where we are, I reckon. I think it was probably a good thing I could get rid of the foreplane that the plane was originally designed to have, because the foreplane would have added more drag and weight to the aeroplane. And just more complexity in general from an engineering point of view. Not that Xplane's an engineering simulator, because it isn't, but that would also be a consideration. So being able to fix the longitudinal stability without adding the foreplane, I think, was a bonus. It's a shame that those drawings I was talking about, I would gladly show them on the computer if I'd had them, but they were lost many years ago. When, well, they must have been just thrown away for whatever reason. Probably when I moved house. A bit silly to have thrown them away because they were very detailed and good drawings, but I'm pretty sure that if I remember correctly, the drawings I'm thinking of did have the foreplane. That said, I think there is actually a drawing that I have somewhere that has the foreplane. Well, I'm not. Actually, let's see. This. I'm just wondering if there's even one that I scanned into the computer somewhere, but I could be wrong. Let's find out. Maybe in there. No, there isn't. Well. It wouldn't have been one of the ones I threw away, of course, so there was a different drawing I remember which did have a picture of the... I think it might have had the foreplane on it. I'm going to have a look. Actually, because I really want to see where... I can't remember where it is, but I might find it. Well, I don't know where it is, it's probably in some other room, so I'm not going to bother looking for it right now. But I'm pretty sure it was definitely a design feature at one point. So I first made this plane in 2020 on Xplane 10, and then I updated it for Xplane 11. It took me a long time to start using Xplane actually, because I always used to use Microsoft Flight Simulator, because that's what I kind of knew. I just don't think I'd been very impressed with Xplane when I downloaded it in Xplane 9 and everything. I could have made the 65-1000 in that, but I think I just thought it was a bit too limited at that point. It's a simulator overall. And, so it wasn't until Xplane 10 I got the demo of that and thought, you know, this could be the platform to make some of these planes on. And that's when I decided I could just finally start making them with the tutorials on the internet and everything that I followed. I have both a pad and paper where I used to draw some of these designs, which I still have, but this plane doesn't feature in it, and there's also spreadsheets I have with the technical specifications of these planes going back to 2004, I believe. I'm not sure what's wrong with my head, but for some reason on both of these things, both in the pad and the technical specification spreadsheets, I have a list of how many planes, how many of these planes have crashed. Like in my kind of fictional airline, so to speak. And to make matters worse, there's not only how many of these planes have crashed, but there would be how many people have died in them. I'm not really sure why I used to do that, but yeah, it's really odd, isn't it? A bit morbid. In fact, I can actually get one of these spreadsheets up right now if I have a look for it. So, this one here, this is it. So we've got a list of these planes, and this is the one here. So this is the kind of speeds they fly at. Performance information, passengers in high density, fatal crashes, the number over time. I had a bunch of like virtual fictional airlines. Not even on the flight simulator, just in my head, I guess. I was a weird teenager anyway, and the number of deaths on each of these types of planes. And somehow we had on 65-1000 910 deaths. Wow. Not good. And that was not on the flight simulator. I've never actually crashed this plane on the flight simulator, you'd be glad to know. But if this plane can carry 600 plus passengers, it's not hard to imagine how 900 people might end up dying on them if there are enough flying around. So weather-wise it looks like it's getting a bit cloudy here. I think these clouds look nice, but the graphics are a bit screwed up here for some reason. I'm not sure what that's all about. 595 knots ground speed right now. Yeah, 684 miles an hour. £51,600 of fuel remaining. 51,000, I said 51,600. So it's a bit hard to tell because of the gusty wind up here even, but the fuel flow per engine is looking around £7,500 an hour. Maybe a bit less on average actually. I used to live right outside Heathrow Airport, and I can tell you now, when I was living outside Heathrow Airport, I used to see these planes. No, I didn't see this one, but I mean, I used to see lots of big jets coming out. I would have been amazed if I'd seen this one flying out. What a sight. It would have been an impressive sight indeed. As far as I can remember, this plane was always called the 65-1000, the biggest, fastest version of this plane. There are two other versions, the 65-200, which is the short-bodied one, and the 65-500. The 200, I think, has the longest range of all, with the least overall weight and the highest relative fuel capacity. And the 65-500 is sort of in between. Both of those cruise at Mach 0.89, a bit slower than the 1000, but the 1000 is the one that I always have to fly. It's just that much more impressive. I do sometimes fly the others, but not much compared to this one. So to all the 6 viewers that I have watching this video, I'd like to say a big thank you, and don't forget to smash that like bell, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that dislike button. Yeah, subscribe. Don't worry, nobody's forcing you to. Bear in mind, I'm just being sarcastic. I'm Captain Canada thinks he's sarcastic. I'm 10 times more sarcastic. Why? Because I'm British. Goes with the territory. We are terrible at sarcasm. You know, it's just, you have to realise if I ever say anything that sounds like it's insulting my viewers, it's just sarcasm. I'm not really insulting anyone. You know, all of my 6 viewers can rest assured that I don't insult anyone. It's all just light-hearted sarcasm. The lowest form of wit, as they say. And that's me. Tell that this plane would be light enough to climb up to 37,000 feet now, because there's a slight nose down attitude. This plane's actually designed to cruise with the nose completely level. So it's actually a bit light for the altitude at the moment. The optimum altitude now is almost 37,000 feet, but because there is no concern about fuel here, I'm not going to bother. It's not like I'm paying for it. Anyway, I don't need this up anymore, we can close that down. As bad as it sounds, I haven't worked out any, sorry, I try not to cough on my streams, you get people who do that and it really annoys me. I also noticed I tend to sniff on my streams a lot. Oh, this isn't a stream, what we're talking about. I thought I was Captain something for a minute. No, this is a video. What am I talking about? What idiot stream indeed. Right. But the point still stands. I don't cough if I can help it. Sorry, I try not to sniff. Because these things really piss people off. I'm pretty sure that sneezing and coughing on video definitely drives people away. If I'm watching somebody else's video, I find myself telling them off over the computer, so to speak, you know, for coughing and things. What was I actually supposed to be talking about? I have no idea. Just start saying something, forget about it, talk about coughing. What was I talking about? I don't know. Anyway, we're going to have to check on the weather at Newark Airport. I think it's looking reasonable though. Not bad anyway. It's still windy though, isn't it? What is with the wind? 16 knots from the west-northwest with gusts of 22. You see, I live in England and we would consider that windy. I suppose parts of England are windy, like around the coasts and what have you, but where I live tends to be quite sheltered. by the hills, so it's not that windy. So I look at these numbers like 16 knots gusting to 22, and it just sounds super windy to me. There goes good old Xplane reloading the weather. I don't know why, but it clears the clouds out and then puts them back again. So, what's that say? School in lockdown. Where's that gone? The story's disappeared now. Another school shooting, is it in America somewhere? Probably. Pretty normal day then. The more muscle we have, the longer we live. Well, I'm buggered then, aren't I? Probably got another 3 years. And that's if we're lucky. It's a good thing I don't do videos of 10-hour flights, isn't it? Because, you know, I get so distracted and get into all these news stories and other internet stuff. I'd probably end up doing pornography after about 2 hours. And then my stream, video, no, it's not a stream. My video would then just get deleted off here anyway. I don't know how people do these 10-hour streams and why people like to watch them. I mean, you know, to each their own, but seriously, 10 hours. At some point I'm going to be doing a transatlantic flight to get over to Europe. I'm definitely not going to make a video of that, because it'd just be bloody boring. I might as well just talk about, you know, news stories or the weather or some other rubbish. Who really wants to watch 8 hours across the Atlantic? It seems to me that people like to watch this if it's like all these really super realistic add-ons like the A350 or things like that. I think these kind of more fictional designs are sort of quite a niche thing, and it's not as the kind of thing that gets much attention compared to, you know, people want to watch how an A350 is flown across the Atlantic with these realistic add-ons, and that's fine. But I still think it's boring. Perhaps I should do what some of these streamers do and have competitions and things where you can win stuff. Except that I don't make any money off this, so no. Basically, it's like 3 viewers, 3 subscribers, and you know, and I don't make any money off it because you need like 1,000 subscribers to monetize videos. So I like the idea of doing a competition. I could give, I mean, I've got a few things lying about that could make good prizes. We've got half a Diet Coke. I've got half a cherry liqueur. It gives me a migraine, that one, so you know, give that away to somebody. I've already drank out of the bottle though, so. There's a Toblerone, but I'm going to finish that in my own time, so you can't have that. I've got a few old CDs. The people like CDs, I give it, I could give away some CDs here, like, no, can't bother to see what you have here. I suppose really though, if I'm doing a flight stream, it should be, or a video, sorry, I keep saying stream, I know I'm not doing a stream. Really I should do like aviation related prizes, so I have some old add-ons for FS 2002 that nobody uses anymore, or FS 2004. We have the Level D 767-300, that was a really good 767 sim back in the day. If anybody wants that, we could do a competition and the winner can get that, or we could have Combat Flight Simulator 3. .727 Professional, you know the Captain Sim 727 Professional? That goes back to like 2003 or 4, I think. It might actually even go back to 2002, I'm not sure. We have the Bonanza F-30E, what is it, F-33, Beechcraft Bonanza for FS 2004. All good prizes to be won. The F-33A Bonanza. Now you can fly the legendary Beech Bonanza F-33A in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2004. Well, whatever, I know I've got like 3 viewers, but I think the basic thing is I'm going to do a competition and the winner can win one of these wonderful prizes. Let's think of some questions and aviation related questions, and the winner, first person with the right answer in the comments section gets let's see, Bonanza F-33A, because I've never actually used it. I don't think I've actually even installed that ever, and I can't now because I don't think FS 2004 even runs on Windows 10 or whatever, so I don't know. I mean, it never did on mine. Does anyone even use it? Sorry, I know I just sniffed. The microphone picks up really badly as well. We should definitely do competition. I mean, I'm going to think of some aviation-related questions. I'm just going to make them up. I mean, obviously they're correct answers to the questions, meaning they're based on real facts, not made-up things, but... Or I could even do it about this plane. Let's make it about the 65-1000 on this flight. Right, so let's see. So, 65-1000, that I've already talked about. Somewhere in this video I said what the maximum number of passengers is. So, I was just thinking whether I should make this multiple choice or not. No, I won't. Because I've already mentioned it, if anyone can remember, or can be bothered to skip back through the video and find out, then the first one with the right answer wins the Bonanza F33A. What's that? You mean you don't want the F33A Bonanza? What do you mean you don't want it? But it's very realistic. Yeah, I know I haven't used it. I've never even used it. Yeah, it's from Microsoft Flight Simulator 2004. I mean, I know that's 21 years ago, but it might work. What, so that's going to be your response, is it? You don't care. And you don't care about my silly competition. Well, I think that's disgusting. 160 nautical miles going in. What's wrong with the good old Bonanza? Okay, I'll think of a different price. I mean, how about if you can have this plane for free? 65-1000 that I'm flying right now. I know it's freeware anyway, but you can have it for free. You can have your own copy. I know, you can have your own copy of the 65-1000 signed by me. I know, so I will literally sign my signature on the nose of the airplane on the side. On the paint job. Sorry. Coughed. And then you can have the signed version. Signed copy of the 65-1000, absolutely free. I think that would make a great prize. This plane is one of the best planes in the world. I mean, I know it doesn't exist in real life, it doesn't matter. Who cares? It's an amazing plane. You'll feel like a real pilot flying this plane. It's a real pilot's plane. It's a real pilot's plane. Okay, let's go with a different competition question. So I brought up the spreadsheet a bit earlier, that you may notice previously in the video. Okay, the question is this, and it's not multiple choice. The question is, how many people have died in crashes on the 65-1000, according to the spreadsheet? Obviously not in real life, but in my kind of weird virtual airlines I used to make up when I was a teenager. That's the question. I'll repeat the question. Where are we going? Yeah, Newark, so. I'll repeat the question. How many passengers died in accidents on the 65-1000 according to my spreadsheet? So if the wind's from the northwest, I suppose we would want to land on a northwest facing runway, but there isn't one there. Apart from runway 29, but that's too short. How ridiculous. So I think we'll be landing on 4 maybe, or 22, which is closest into the wind. What is the actual wind direction? The wind direction is 290. So 22 is the best one, but it is a breeze. It's still, well, it is, but yeah, okay. So 22 right. ILS is 1 at 110.75. And it's going to be time to start the descent very, very soon. Pressure setting 993. Well, this has been a very short flight for a distance like this. I think even with a jetliner, it's been much better than those slow old Airbus A3, whatever they are, things like that. So, what do they actually use on this flight anyway? I mean, I'm sure this obviously is a real flight, so I can tell you now, whatever they use is absolutely second rate compared to the 65-1000. There's nothing like a 65-1000. I can actually find out what they use on it. I mean, so I use this website, for example, so I know it's going to be Atlanta. Newark, so it's the there'll be a bunch of planes in it. Yeah, lots of Airbuses, A320s, 19s, 21neo, 20neo. We've got the 737 Max. Might have most of its doors intact, hopefully. We have. Yeah, basically as you might expect it, 737s and 320s. Boring. Let's just take an example, this A320neo of Spirit Airlines. I've heard Spirit Airlines are a really class airline. They're really like top notch. Oops, get off. Now that is a bizarre flight plan. Did he have to fly around a storm or something? That guy just went all the way north and then turned east like that, really. How ridiculous is that? About this one, Delta A321neo. So that looks more like a proper flight, that's like it should be. So what was going on with the other one then? Right, so we have that's a Delta 321neo. That's this flight. Cool. That's interesting. It's time to start descending, so I'm going to go in speed hold mode. It must be near Washington right now then, I think. Right down here, is that it? Somewhere down here, yeah. Those stray helicopters, hopefully. Turning over this height. No, I was wrong. We're over Philadelphia. Yeah. No, well, you can't expect me to know. I'm not a real pilot, am I? Well, okay, if it's not Washington and it's Philadelphia, hopefully no Learjet accidents then. Well, mind you, accidents are part of life, I suppose. Unfortunately, but there we go. Let's hope we don't have one. Imagine if we did. I mean, 580 passengers and 20 crew members on here, that would be 600 dead. Just as well I didn't become a real pilot then. Unfortunately, I failed the exam, you see. As far as I went to the centre and I took the exam and they said, I'm sorry, but you got the answer wrong. So you can't be a pilot. You'll just have to work in McDonald's or something like that. I didn't work in McDonald's, I worked in Pizza Express. And that didn't go very well either, I have to say. That's what happens though if you fail the exam. Seeing if I can remember, that was back in 2009, I was going to see if I can remember some of the questions they asked in the exam, like, whereabouts on the aeroplane is the wing usually found? It took me about half an hour to answer it, and they said it was wrong. He said, sorry, you can't be a pilot and your social skills suck as well. You wouldn't get on with anyone. We can't imagine you working in a team. You'd be dreadful. They were right. I am. You know, very difficult to work with, which is why it's a good thing I just fly this plane on my own, even though it's not a real plane, because I designed it on my own. I think designing planes is more interesting anyway. So that's what I do. It just helps if you can fly them as well. Excuse me, not. Oh, my chest sounds really hollow. It's supposed to sound like that. I suppose it is actually. I've done a lot of exercise lately. I think that means my lungs have got bigger. Oh, that's good then. Good. So anyway, it means I'm getting fitter. Looks like it's going to be quite cloudy here. What a sexy beast. This plane is absolutely the most, I think, amazing looking jetliner ever. I'm not saying that to brag or to sound my own trumpet, as they say, but I do think it's an incredible looking plane. Imagine if you saw this flying out of one of these major airports. nice if I could see stuff. You don't have to be able to see anything, of course, on an IFR flight, but I know I'm not using the ATC. The ATC are crappy in Xplane, so we don't use them, and I don't know how to use VATSIM. VATSIM is like the virtual air traffic control on the internet, isn't it? And that's, you know, like Captain Canada uses it, and all these big time streamers. I don't understand it though, really. I think I've done enough by making this plane in the first place. I don't have to worry about also having to use the online ATC. Would they even know what this plane was? Like, I mean, this plane is a one-off plane, so it would probably be referred to as an experimental, I guess. Right, pressure is 993, I believe, isn't it? So we've got to do our downwind here into Newark. Being a big, heavy plane and a fast plane, it needs a lot of room to straighten out this plane on approach. The autopilot as well, it's like everything happens kind of slowly because it's such a big, fast plane. So I mean, when I say everything happens slowly, I mean the autopilot reacts slowly, the plane reacts slowly to changes in speed and trajectory. Like if you bugger it up, you can end up having to just redo the whole approach quite easily. Which of course would be the responsible thing to do, but on the other hand it would also waste a lot of fuel, which I've had to not pay for, of course, so actually it doesn't really matter. But I just prefer to get it right first time. So I do tend to do quite a long downwind on this plane because it is a big slippery plane. The airport is over there somewhere. Behind the clouds. So presumably the course into runway 22 right is going to be 220 degrees. It's maybe not always exactly that, but it's about that, isn't it? So 220. I know in reality there's a 250 knot speed restriction below 10,000 feet. We ignore that on me. My plane, my rules. This plane doesn't like low speed anyway. This plane is really struggling to descend. It's like really, it's such a sleek aeroplane, it just doesn't like to go down and slow down. That's pretty typical, but I might use the speed brakes just a bit. Otherwise the downwind will end up being too long. That's better. think I'm going to intercept the sort of glide slope at 4,000 feet. Set up a nice long approach for this because it's a very big and sluggish to manoeuvre kind of plane. Armed. Starting my right turn here. So in the clean configuration we don't want to get below 250 knots. And start getting some flaps out at that speed. So the localizer and glide slope are armed. Nice long approach we're going to do here. Localizer is captured. See how long it takes the autopilot to straighten out on this. I mean, when I first made this plane I had to tune the autopilot loads to try and get this accurate on the localizer, otherwise it would just sort of keep missing it. Right, we've got the glide slope coming in, so we're going to get some flaps in. Flaps down, I mean. Flaps 10 degrees. Now we have the localizer captured. The glide slope captured, sorry. Both the localizer and the glide slope captured. I can see some of that gusty wind starting to come in here. Right, flaps. 15, yeah. Gear down. There's a bit of a crosswind there. Laps 20. Right, let's go for full flaps here. Right, I'm going to take over manually. Again, turning off the runway here, even after that crosswind landing, is probably even harder. Another thing that people might say is unrealistic, I don't have any AI traffic on today. I think my AI traffic program is out of date and it crashes anyway, so I think we just won't bother with that risk. So here we are in Newark. I'm just going to cut across here, because it's just easier on this plane than having to bugger around with corners and things. Special permission. Alright, here we are. Doing here, I think. What an amazing plane this is. Now get the hell off.